Hi, everybody. Welcome to our week. I don't even know what week. I think it's episode 4 of Adventures. Maybe it's episode 3.
4.
I don't have. It's episode 4 of Adventures of Inner Space, where we talk about all kinds of interesting topics, such as this week's topic, which is going to be how to unleash the grip of trauma. Just talking about different ways that we can let go of trauma. Of course, first recognizing that trauma might have something to do with our lives in the first place. And here to discuss that with me is Todd Cunningham, director of Universal Flow, and Nate of I Am Innate. All 3 of us have been studying alternate means of living for many years now. And we've just decided to come together and talk about different topics that might be appealing to you. Hopefully some of the things that we discuss and bounce off of each other is somehow beneficial to you. Maybe something we say can click and help you expand your life in a more positive direction. That being said, today's topic, we'll go back to that, is how to let go of
the grip,
unleash and let go of the grip of trauma. So we've all experienced some sort of trauma in our lives. If you say you haven't, then I think you're a liar. Sorry, but I mean, even something as little as falling down as a child can create some sort of a trauma if you're not aware of it. And that's the key, is becoming aware of different things that could be holding you back or could be blocking you from jumping into the flow of your perfectly imperfect life. So with that, I will turn over the first portion of this to Todd and see what he has to say, and maybe give some ideas.
You're Rachel Ann, right?
Oh, and I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Rachel Ann. And I'm just introducing right now, and I'm just here willing to share my experiences, share my thoughts, share some of the mediums that I've learned along the way on how to jump into the flow and live.
Do we want to go right into that, or do we want to do a grounding thing?
That's a good idea. I think that we should all
do?
get centered real quick. Nothing huge, just a real quick centering. Maybe sit back into a comfortable position. Take a nice deep breath.
I can do it. How are you doing it? You do it.
Yeah, I am. There I am. Take a nice sit down. Take a moment to stop. Take a breath. Close your eyes. Let your body say, ah. Let your body relax. Let yourself fall into yourself. Bring your focus to your breath. Notice your breath. Just stay with your breath. Notice every aspect of it. Feel it touch your nose. Feel it go down your throat, into your lungs, all the way down to your belly. Feel it as it exhales you out of your body. On your next breath, allow that motion, that energy of breathing in, travel past your belly, all the way down, past wherever it is you're sitting. Let it penetrate into the earth, all the way to the center of the earth. It might take a couple of breaths to get there for you. However you get there, some people use root systems, some people hop rocks, some people use the water channels. However it is for you, use your imagination. Get right to the center and heart of the earth. Once you reach that space, allow yourself to connect there. Snuggle right up there. Get real cozy right there at the center of the earth. And then on your next exhale, allow yourself to come back in to your body, still maintaining that anchor to the center of the earth. And then let's breathe in all that is. And then exhale, expand yourself to all that is. And open your eyes. And here we are. I'm going to turn this over to Todd.
Turn over to me. Okay, well.
There you go.
Can I talk a little about trauma at some point with the physical part of it?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Todd, if you want first, though.
Okay. Whatever you guys want. It's interesting, Rachel, you say unleashing. I like that word. I was like, what? But it comes out how you get it, the word that you get, and that has like a double meaning, like letting go of, releasing, like unleashing, letting go of the leash of the trauma. But it's also like, so it hit me because I'm in the middle of it. Whenever I do set up something like this for me, I always say the universe tricks me, because whenever I've done a workshop or say I'm going to do this or I'm going to just do a session with somebody, I'm like, oh, here we go. Now I've got to do it myself. So I'm all agitated with trauma right now. And when you said unleashing, I was like, oh yeah, so it's also like
holding a leash.
However we try to push it away from ourselves, it just takes that much energy. And I think it takes that much more energy to like hold it down. And so you're consuming this huge amount of energy just to, I don't know, pretend something's not there. The other common thread that I've seen through all our shows is, the step one. So we're almost coming up with steps for these things. And when I talk with Rachel on the side, Rachel will be like, well, we did that last time. It's the same subject. And in a way, it is all the same subject. So it's noticing, right? The first step's like, and Nate brought this up when we were talking before. It just, the first step in becoming more conscious is becoming more aware that you have something going on, or that you're reacting to things, or you have this pattern that triggers something, or when versus just being reactive and not even noticing that that's what's happening. So I think that's one of the hardest parts too, is to be like, oh, here we go again, here comes. And I think there's it's back to the yin yang thing we've talked about before. Again, you don't want to wallow around in it all the time, feeling horrible about something, but you also can't deny when it's coming up again. So there's some sort of flow and push-pull with all of that. So once again, I think is recognizing. And one thing I found, if not any other way, allowing myself to see how I'm feeling about something releases a whole bunch of energy that's available for me to then change it, rewrite it, have a new relationship with it, like that. So
and to transmute it, like I think the reason that I spoke unleash rather than release is because you're not just releasing something. If there's something that you've been holding and holding and holding, my teachings go and follow, and I think I've discussed this before, that if you're holding something so much, it becomes important to you, maybe in a negative connotation, but it becomes important enough for you to hold it. for some reason you're holding this and you're making it special, probably in a way that's not beneficial, but you're still making it special to you. So when you allow that to be released, you release it as a gift. So you transmute it as from being something bad that's holding you down. You transmute it to something here as a gift. This is a gift back to the universe. Thank you for all the lessons it's taught me. Thank you for everything that it's done for me. And most of the time you'll find the gifts in it, for sure. And that goes right down to physical ailments, which Nate, I think you had a lot to talk about on that, the physical aspects of trauma.
Okay. So I've done a lot of deep nervous system work and energy work over the last 15 years or so. And I was really interested in how the brain worked. And the more you work this physical, like deep tissue stuff, right, the more you realize the brain has a higher aspect coming in that's really controlling the brain. If you want to call it this universal energy, this universal force, whatever it is. And this is through our DNA and through the quantum field. So bridging the nervous system with this stuff with the energetic field has been everything I've done with everything in my life. And trauma, so what happens with someone that broke their ankle, for instance, they're going to have the physical problem on their ankle, but like thinking at the same time that everything affects everything else. So when you break your ankle, you're limping now, and then the limping that you're doing, you're going to affect your knee, your hip, and your low back, right? So everything's really connected when it's physical. And why did I break my ankle specifically? Based on the energetics of the law of attraction in the universe and our DNA tapping into the quantum field. Our lineage has all this trauma that, like, when it goes somewhere, the emotion holds areas in our body, right? So for instance, I broke my left ankle. Something within my DNA from my lineage caused that physical break to happen in that spot because of, I call it like an Achilles heel. That whole idea that I have this weak part of my body because of stuff in my lineage, and probably being Celtic, being in a lot of wars through my lineage's history. So what happens with epigenetics now, they know that the trauma from a couple hundred generations ago can transfer through the DNA all the way to us right now. So when we have a physical trauma, you have this, you heard it, and you got to heal from it. And I worked as a therapist doing that for years, helping people physically heal from traumas like that. And as I was doing it more and more, I realized the emotional aspect of a physical trauma. So I got involved with doing some emotion work at the same time. And when you clear these emotions, the physical healing is much quicker. And it seems like the DNA tunes to that emotional release to like do things more, where I call it like the transmitters, more like sending the energetics like in the body, like you have all these ions, all these charges. Your body's going to transmit healing way quicker when it's releasing a lot of its emotional trauma. Okay, so for instance, like a gallbladder attack with someone, right? That's a trauma because you're in the hospital, and it's one of the most painful things you can have. Gallbladder holds a lot of grief and things like that. Okay, and so gallbladder, when we have this attack, there's a reason, there's all these emotions associated with the gallbladder. And just think, that's the solar plexus, so is the stomach. Okay, that's our emotional center of our body. Okay, so when we're working physically to heal trauma, you're doing all these exercises, you're getting people, and that's great. But there's so much more to the physical. Like in medicine, I find right now we're only focused the physical. We don't look into the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, and the energetic aspect. Okay, so the more different things we're doing, like acupuncture taps into the energy field, which, each meridian's based on emotions and things like that. So a meridian, for instance, for gallbladder, there's a gallbladder meridian. It's for the whole organ, but it runs through the body from your toes all the way to your hand. Okay, it goes all the way up through the body. So that whole energetic of the gallbladder is affecting all those areas also in that meridian. Okay, so there's so much to, people think they can just heal themselves from things, right? And yes, you can, but you really got to tap into more than just the physical. And this is why people don't fully heal from stuff. And medicine programs us to say, you're only going to like 85% heal. It's because you didn't deal with the emotion, mental, spiritual, and energetic. Mind,
I,
body, soul.
I've
Yep.
seen
I agree.
direct proof, Nate, of, you know, a friend of mine broke his collarbone. And so I did sessions with him, probably 2, maybe 3. And he didn't go to the doctor for a couple of weeks. And we're doing physical, cranial, sacral, and energetic type, you know, patterning, trying to, the way I do it is just kind of light up the pattern so that your system can see it more easily. But then the other thing was using conscious language, I've called it. I think they're all similar things, like when you've done the emotion code with me. It's just a different way of going to, and with something as simple as breaking a collarbone, it's, well, what was going on right then? And, you know, what was your mindset? And, you know, just even getting some layers of what's stuck in there, in the actual injury, and recording the injury. And to make the story shortest, he eventually got an x-ray. I still have the x-ray somewhere. He got an x-ray a couple weeks later, and the doctor argued with him adamantly. I have even pictures and drawings about how fibroblasts work and all these other things on the back of his x-ray, because the doctor wouldn't accept the date of his injury. He said this injury has to be a month old because of how much healing's happened already. You know, he wouldn't, the orthopedic surgeon wouldn't accept that someone's collarbone had healed that much in 2 weeks. And I know the part of it is processing through. But what's harder is, I think, emotional trauma.
And emotional trauma, you know, like Nate was saying, definitely can cause some pretty severe physical issues. If you ever want to look into another topic, German New Medicine, they have a whole system mapped out just on that topic, and how these little lesions, and this goes back to yogic teachings too, where we do japas in order to clear mind thought processes, thought patterns. And you do your japas, you know, you repeat a mantra over and over again, and it clears that channel in your brain, which is actually a lesion that forms. Maybe lesion is a little bit too harsh of a word for that, but it's like a little channel that forms in your brain. It's a physical channel that forms in your brain based on the thought pattern that you are repeating over and over again. And when you can clear that and you can smooth it out, and there's actual scans of this happening, and you can look it up online anywhere that, you know, you can find these, I think, what are they, CAT scans of the brain? You can find these scans where before and after, and meditation, japas, which are repeating the mantras, and it clears that channel that's been developed in the brain. And by clearing that channel, it clears physical ailments in the body that are a result of that continuous mindset, or that continuous behavior pattern, or that continuous thought pattern, which goes back to what you guys are both talking about. You know, it goes both ways. If you can address your emotions, I'm a firm believer that anything that's wrong, I shouldn't say wrong, anything that is a disease or discord in my physical body is a direct result of something that I'm thinking or living, or something in my environment is happening. And I've felt that way for a long time. I had several things happen to me, traumas in my life that have happened. And if I hadn't gone in and addressed them, I'd probably be dead. My body can't handle it. It's too much. And me personally, the way my body operates, It's super sensitive. If anything's off at all, I get sick. And unfortunately, I'd like it to be a little less sensitive, but fortunately for me, it's almost like my meter to let me know which direction to go and take a step back, go forward. You know, it's like my physical body is my tool to keep me in the right flow in a way. That being said, I know that there's still traumas and some things that I need to address, but I've got to stop or take the time to address them, or to, you can't live in that mindset all the time of like, what's wrong with me? How am I going to fix this? Because no, there's nothing wrong with you. These things are not something that's wrong with you. These things are little alerts to say, hey, this might be something you want to look at. Why is this happening? And the German New Medicine that I mentioned a moment ago, the woman that I know who practices that, Deanna Courtney, she claims that those are all healing symptoms. So when your body starts to show like an infection, she claims that that's your body going into healing mode. So it recognizes that something's wrong and it's saying, okay, we got to heal this. So for me, it kind of, it works that way, and I get it. So when I see that something's not right, or I feel not right about something, then it's like, okay, why is this happening? Did something happen and my body's going into healing over this? What is it exactly that's going on? It just makes me stop. And that's the key. Stop, be aware, address it. You don't have to live in it. Like Todd said, you don't have to wallow in it, but just take a moment for yourself. Don't add something more to ignore it, or don't go into like, I got to do this, and that's not something I need to address right now.
So,
And if you have a trauma, don't ignore it, because it's going to come back. It'll come back and say, hey, you didn't address me.
You bring a good point up though with like, don't hold, like when you have the trauma, if people sit there and focus and keep thinking more negative thoughts, the DNA tunes into that. When you're healing, you're actually turning off the healing mechanism physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and energetically. So the way, like, if people have a chance, this is a really good book, You Are the Placebo by Joe Dispenza. He healed from a broken spine. He broke 6 levels. He got ran over by a Mack truck on a bike, and he was back adjusting patients in 6 weeks. But he didn't use the nocebo effect where most people do. They're thinking negative thoughts that programs the DNA to this negative, and it shuts down a lot of the harmony in the body. So the DNA therefore is healing itself from this disharmony that you're creating, where he's like, tap into like thinking positive, imagining, use imagination. We talked about imagery last time. He imagined like the healing going on within himself. However way someone's going to do that, everyone thinks differently on that. And then, as simple as that, your body's DNA, it takes like 3-4 weeks really to kick into this and being tuned to it, but it'll heal so much faster. And this whole med bed thing coming, they've already made a big release with the med beds in the Netherlands, and it's coming here. Simon Park's last video said he's moving to Florida. He's going to have a place in Texas, and he's going to have a place in Arizona, where he's setting 3 healing facilities up that all have med beds. And he said that, this is happening. The plans are set. It's happening this year. So these med beds, like our positive mindset, they can use the frequencies with that positive mindset to shift anything physically in the body, because the whole physicality of the body is based on that energetic field that shifts these physical ions, like even our proteins are ions, to do different things within themselves for healing. It's really cool.
From assuming that it's real what they're saying.
Yeah,
because that's all I know. I don't know for myself. What they're saying is you have to meet the med beds through things of what we're talking about. And in other words, if you're in a 3D, the world's this way, and medicine works this way, and none of that's real, basically, then they can put you in that bed and not much is going to happen. Because
but it shifts their vibration the first time,
your frequency.
the first time you're in that, even if you don't believe in it, it's already tuning their light body to
Maybe
do
so. I'm
certain
just
things.
telling you
You know?
what I've heard about it.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
it
for sure.
triggers your body. It triggers your being to
Yep.
recognize it, which is like meeting somebody on the street. You know, you always meet somebody and they trigger something in you, whatever it is. And that, I think that's what these beds do as well.
And
You had mentioned
yeah.
something about generational
Oh,
karma.
the reason I'm saying it that way is because, you know, and I'm just saying what I know and what I've learned, and I've listened to
Belief,
lots of
yeah.
these. I've listened to lots of these stories, and I
For
hope
sure.
that a lot of them's true. I'm just pointing out that I'm not, you know, when I have one sitting there in front of me, I'll know.
You're right on. I mean, it's gonna amplify the belief of the person for sure. I get what the intention and all that. It's all about our intention. So what I see that doing with a skeptical person is it's gonna just slowly get them thinking a little differently, and then maybe they change to that. And some people aren't meant to. That's okay if they don't. If they don't, it's where they're at and where they have to learn from. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh no,
So,
And maybe their job is to be that person to trigger
yes.
somebody else
Yep.
in some
For
way.
sure.
It's not, you know, and we're not here to tell everybody you have to heal, you have to address your traumas. We're here to share with you possibilities of how you might want to address things or how we have addressed things. And maybe by us doing that, it might bring you to a space where you can find greater inner peace and have more inner adventures in inner space. But you had mentioned before, and I wanted to go back to that, about generations and generational trauma and generational karma. And there's a lot of people out there who become physically ill. And I know we're just talking about illnesses here, but there's other means of trauma. But so, for instance, a woman, a family who the women in the family have been oppressed for years or had been sexually abused. Somebody way back in the lineage had been sexually abused. In one way or another, that's brought forward until it's met, until it's addressed, or until it's released from that lineage. And once you realize it, you can actually go back and almost track it to that person that it actually happened to first. And it's amazing how you can see the whole circular development of it, and how, like, for instance, if it was, just to use an example, if it was me and I had been sexually abused in this lifetime, that me addressing that and not just pushing it under the table, but me addressing it and owning it, not having to wallow in it and not making it my life and not making it my identity, but to address it and say, yes, this has happened to me. Okay, as a result of this happening to me, I have learned this about myself. I have learned that about myself. It is still horrible, and I don't like that it's happened to me. But by addressing it and by owning it and by continuing to heal yourself from it, you're healing all those past generations, and you're allowing it to stop there and not be carried on forward and not be gifted, so to speak, to the next generation to come. You've created an awareness so that, you know, say I had a little girl and I never addressed it. Somehow in my behaviors, it's likely that that little girl would take that on to herself as well. Moms pass all kinds of stuff on to their children without knowing it in utero, without even knowing.
I think it's true, and I see it in common threads where, like, so Nate's done the emotion code with me, and it's basically a whole protocol of how to get to those levels, one way to get to those levels. And then the German new medicine has similar ways, and the body electronics stuff that I studied is really where the languaging stuff comes from, because it's an easy way to lead people into those. And you're holding physical points at the same time you're leading somebody into those channels. And we've seen shifts of certain things happening And everyone thought it was DNA in the past. So they say, well, that's not possible. That can't happen. But when you shift to epigenetics, like Nate is saying, then you, it can happen through the entire lineage and in both directions, not just from past to future, but into the, like you're saying, Rachel, into the other future direction of the people as well. So in one way, I think of looking at it physically, if we look at a DNA like a tuning fork, and the DNA can, the display of the DNA can be shifted by how we respond to what's happened to us, then your family's DNA is almost exactly the same frequencies as yours. So when you shift that trained part of the DNA inside of yourself, then it's going to, I think that's out of time. That's other dimension rather than time.
Oh yeah, it definitely shifts within a family or a group of related. I don't even know why it's related, but it does shift within a group, especially groups who have lived together for generations.
Well, it's like
I have many examples of it in my family alone. The healing, alcohol, that was a big thing in my family, that went back a lot of generations, and just to bring the awareness forward, just to have the awareness, not necessarily saying, oh, we don't drink, we don't do the, it's not that. It's allowing yourself to have the awareness to, why is that there? And it doesn't have to be a physical trauma that's made it happen. I once participated in a group in New York where it was for veterans, and I thought, oh, I'll go. I'm not a veteran, I'm not affected by it. But when I sat with that group, I realized my dad was in a war, his father was in a war, my mom's father was in a war, his father was in a war, his mother was working with the War Department. And to realize all of the atrocities that they had been exposed to, and how them bringing it back to this life with their families and their homes, how it affected each generation along the way. I was affected by it. There's no question. It may have been more subtle than some, but there's no question that I was affected by that. And by taking a moment to address it, and seeing that I was, part of that as well. At that moment when I did that, I was able to become aware of that, so that I wasn't going to pass all of that on to my children. And maybe I still am passing some of it along to them, but at least I took the moment to recognize it and see that, and hopefully being able to talk about it to my children, they'll be more conscious of not carrying it with them as well. Yeah. So
I think the amount of trauma that's within our lineages that's going to show up, and very soon, I think it's going to, along with these med beds coming along, but it's going to get more and more.
So that was an example of just being a veteran, or not being a veteran. And so then I started recognizing it in all these different cultures. I mean, the number one for me was the Native Americans and the Black cultures. Wow. There's some stuff that they've had to endure, and there's no way that these people aren't affected in modern day by those past traumas. But we are too. Just because we're a different culture than them, we're still affected by it as well. So all of this comes together, it's all circular. And the more we're able to speak about it openly, the more it's going to heal.
I wanted to bring up why I have this bowl here right now. Sound healing is like, before these med bed come out. I believe right now the sound with the light, right? Reiki is always, they're using the light. Sound is going to make it way easier for people to heal because of the frequencies it creates and what it does to disrupt the signals in our body that are holding on. It brings them to the surface. So when we do our meditation, I'll do the bowl later. If you guys don't mind, if I can do this meditation today, I'll do it with the bowl and I'll talk us through a meditation with using this sound. But everyone here will feel this sound, and you don't have to go out and buy a crystal bowl. You can use, like, I have a flute. You can use drums. You can, by actually doing it, I'm not really a musician, but by me doing this, it releases this stuff to the surface. And lately I'm going to these guys that are doing a sound bath. So if no one's heard of sound baths, these are different ways to gather and where you receive these frequencies, and maybe places can't gather right now. So you can, I'll post, if Todd wants, I'll send him this group I'm going to. I'll give them, it was the first one they did. They had a guest person and it's up on YouTube, and it's really good to listen to this stuff because it's not just the perfect pretty sounds like I brought up before, it's the disrupting sounds too. So the bowls are really the pretty sounds, which is great to start with because it starts getting you used to changing the sound, but eventually the disruption's just as important. So why am I mentioning this again? Because DNA is tuned to this. I mean, this is 432 hertz. It's the solar plexus. Okay, this is like the frequency nature creates right here. Okay, this is my favorite bowl because of it being the solar plexus, the power center of the body. And it makes this sound that it does annoy some people. And this is my take on the annoying, because I've worked a lot of people with the bowls in my office. I used to do a lot of energy healing with the crystal bowls, and a lot of people, I found it irritated them. But the irritation is because of something inside you that's needing to free from that solar plexus that's locked
getting
in that
unleashed.
emotion. That's in that emotional center. It's being freed out. So it's irritating you, that frequency, because that frequency is disrupting something in you that you got used to over time because it's one of your traumas.
Right. There's a lot of music that's out there now too. Musicians are making music deliberately for that purpose. I listen to a lot of pretty funky music, and
so
it releases in that way as well.
So we have like 15 minutes, so we should probably, go over some of our favorite ways before we do that.
That's right.
Of doing this. And Nate, that's one way. And I'm like, go to a sound bath. I tell everybody, go to a sound bath. There's whatever that everybody who's doing it's going to be different. And I've had people tell me, oh, well, I'm not into that kind of music. I'm like, no, this is not entertainment. This is an experience.
Right.
It's a whole
healing.
Immersive.
It's not supposed to be. Sometimes it's not fun because those healing sounds hurt. Literally.
Well, and then the other thing I wanted to talk about, I'll tell you my favorite way, but we keep having these common threads that are like underlying what we're talking about. And so, this unleashing your trauma thing, that's something that's something I'm going to work with, because it's really, that's it. I think it's why people hold it in and stop themselves, because I think they're terrified. And I know this is true for me. I'm like, you don't want me to unleash this shit. Who knows what's going to happen. So
I was not expecting that one at all, Todd.
So then you hold it in. And you're like, so my grounding something, when I figured out grounding, and that there's more of me and there's more of all it is, and then we could have a long discussion about that whole circle. And I think it's frame of reference. So, me, Todd, in this body on the planet, I'm not source and all it is, and yet I am that. So, but it continues the loop, and it's back to our first common thread, which is awareness itself. Allowing yourself to become aware that I'm not just this lost guy who nobody around me in Northern New York has ever made any sense in my life, because they're all disconnected. They're just linear thinking, and the world's this way, and you have to do this and you have to do that, and it's all programmed. And since I was this big, I'm like, but has anyone thought why we're doing this way, or why are we doing that way, or why do we do this way? And so I held it in. And so finding out that I could connect with the planet and then with source. Now, if I go out in the woods, that's the best place, although I've learned how to bring that with me now. And then the energy just starts, it's like a bath on a multidimensional bath. It starts, so I can sit with that intensity that I have and being aware of it, but then have this pure source energy like washing through that at the same time. And the less I think, for me personally, the less I try to like figure out, I just come away 20 minutes later, I'm different again. I'm like, okay, 1 minute I was just gripping and had full control of my life. And 20 minutes later, I'm like, all right, yeah, I went through that again.
So that,
now
Todd,
I'm going to go do this.
You brought up a good point that we really should, we only have a few minutes left here, that we should just start listing different ways for people that we've used, different tools we've used.
Okay,
We can
so
do
you're
a
just
whole video on that too.
grounding and
Right.
meditating in the
things, you know.
woods.
That's
Yeah,
a big
grounding-
topic. So
And yours
Yeah,
is
Todd,
yours
that's-
is yoga.
Well, it's
Nate's
not
on-
always yoga. No, mine is not always yoga. Releasing for me, I use many different means. Water is a huge one for
the
me.
most important
Showers.
things though, guys, is the intention, right? So
Right.
they need to come up with their intentions and stick with it and don't lose it throughout their healing process.
Well, you've got to
you know?
become aware first that you want to address something. And then,
Yep.
typically when you're getting all stressed out, what do? Well, my go-to is I'll go to water. That's always for me. I'll get a shower, mineral salt bath, a river, lake, ocean, water, always water. That'll just cleanse me. If I can't, I've got sage. We can use sage. I've got, we have sound and grounding. And I think I kind of, the grounding always comes into play anyway, regardless. And my way of grounding is a little different than how Todd explains grounding. I tend to just bring my center to my center, bring my energy to my center. I don't always focus on grounding to something specific. I a lot of times, and maybe I'm incorrect in doing this, but this is how I do it. I bring myself to myself. Big self to little self, if you want to look at it that way. But I do my best to collect up all of my energies that's all over the place, and I try to whirlwind them into one little spot so that I can beam from that spot, and that really helps. But the water always is a go-to. I have a crystal harp that I play. I have a flute. I have drums. Those are some ways that I use. Nate, do you add some more to that?
Yeah, I do a lot. I do a lot of voice stuff with the bowls, and that's, I guess, my
Toning,
biggest
yeah.
way of releasing is toning, because it must tune whatever I'm doing with my voice is tuning what I need with my body, and I just channel it, and it comes through random. And I was just talking to Chris Faso last night. He does a lot of this stuff too. Anyone want to connect with him, check out Chris Faso. He's pretty interesting. He does all these crystal bowl things live, and like, it's just amazing the things we can do right now. But like she said, awareness, intention, set your placebo, create your dream, your imagination, create your reality by dreaming what you want to happen for your body. But journal a little to see what you want, because when you're journaling, your mind can let go, and you'll write stuff on paper you don't even realize, and then you kind of know what way you want to go. So
that's a good point too. Sometimes you don't know you're releasing, and then while you're releasing, you don't really know which direction you want your intentions to go. You just want to come to that space of yourself. So those techniques can help you get to that space so that things are more clear for you. And yes, I do use yoga to release a lot, Todd. That's like hardcore stuff for me, like releasing body. When it gets to my body, it's huge when I get to the yoga portion of it.
Awesome. And listen to your body too right now. That's part of the awareness. Connect with your body and listen. Everyone's different. So not everyone's meant to do all the same things. That's good. Go with what you're being told through you. I'm gonna start. If you guys are up for it, it's 10:15 right now. Can we do this meditation, then talk a little after, you think? Possibly?
We have time? We have time, yeah.
Because I think
we have like 15
this,
minutes, so
this
however
will take
you want
10,
to,
12
but
minutes.
I think we got to let Nate play that ball, or he's gonna like vibrate right. He's like, he's jumping right out of his body. He's coming right through the screen. Going, I gotta play the ball. So you win.
So I was gonna tell a joke though, like what I like to do.
And what I like to do
to release.
I'm not trying to actually give you a hard time. Is that as these things go, because behind the scenes we talked about. Well, I mean, we're kind of a whatever happens sort of group, and it's live, and it's what's happening, and so these things. However you try to manage it or manufacture it or put it together, I'm sitting here like, I don't even want to talk to anybody today. And
you know how
Rachel's
it
like,
pops
it's all good. And Nate's like,
you know how it pops up a lot of times is through like I just start talking random stuff at my house. Like the girls always laugh. I start talking about the flying donkeys. So like I just say these random things, right? And I love saying random things. I think it makes everyone laugh.
You love donkeys.
I love flying donkeys. And so like every time I start talking about the flying donkeys, I notice that's when I have a trauma coming out because my head goes that way. And it's because I got to release something that's coming through to the head for some reason, Mm-hmm. That's another good one. All right, here we go. So breathe in through your nose. Out through your mouth.
Can you put the microphone any closer to that somehow?
Yeah, I can't hear it really well.
I'll bring this forward. I can get it close on it there. How about that?
Yeah, much better.
Is it too loud or okay?
Good.
Okay. So breathe in through your nose.
It's breaking up.
And out through your mouth.
Perfectly agitating.
Breathe in through your nose. Out through the mouth. Connect your pineal gland and your mid of your brain to your heart. With intention, just by doing it, we did it. Connect the mind and the brain to the universal mind and the heart. Now you're tuned in to nature and the frequency of your body, which tunes to nature. We're going to create a dream in a childlike state. So we're going to revert back in time to when we were a child and when we can remember as a child. Bringing this time to the present moment now. We're going to create a dream in the childlike state from the body, grounded in our heart. As a child, we're sitting on the beach right now, on a desert island somewhere. We're on the beach with the water, with our feet in the water, sitting on the sand, feeling the wind. Smelling that air, that ocean breeze smell, salt water. tasting that salt in our mouths, but also taste and smelling in a way that fresh air from the ocean. As we let this salt water just tune our field in our body for healing, mind, body, soul, energy, and spirit. As we tune this healing, we feel the salt water as if it's connecting through our entire body. This energetic field it's creating as it's flowing through everything in our body. Letting the wind brush off anything coming to the surface. And the water, as the waves come up to our feet, pulling all this past trauma information that's been connected, unleashing it back into the water and letting the wind also take it. So this energy goes back to wherever it comes from. We're tasting that ocean breeze and tasting the salt water. We're letting that taste in our mouths clear the heavy metals, because our mouth is where we deal with the heavy metals and label everything. So we're helping our body to label the toxins in our body. We're setting that intention to connect, to be aware of this release of all the toxins in our body, as we're giving a little extra love to our livers, our spleen, our blood, our kidneys, our adrenal glands, and all the organs and glands in the body. As we ask with intention directly through our heart's field to the body's cell for physical healing, for emotional healing, for mental healing, for spiritual healing, and energetic healing, all as if they're all one together in a state of balance. And as we release when we're ready, we free the traumas that have been tied to us multi-generationally and in this lifetime. Now we're sitting on the sand, feeling really light because that sun's hitting our back and it's really nice and warm, and it makes us feel real warm inside because the sun hits us through the back of our heart, and that your heart just expands. You feel this warmth from the sun expanding, that feeling flowing out of you, in you, infinitely, in every direction possible. The sun pierces right through and opens us up as we're free now, as a child, dreaming, using our imaginations to create with compassionate action. Now that we've released and become this child, it's time to reset our intentions. The human purpose of helping yourself and helping others as a main intention, regardless what we're doing in life. Sending love, gratitude, appreciation, thanks to connecting to these energies as we are as a child, and connecting them into our present moment now as we hear meditating in this present moment. We are so thankful. We are so grateful. We are so appreciative to be this child of love. opening up, changing our adult bodies back into this childlike heart-based consciousness. We now come back into our hearts, grounding into our hearts, grounding that child into our hearts, but this time not so deep inside of us where it's there available to tap into at all times. When we start thinking with our heads again and jump out of this heart space, which we can do, and that's good and that's fine, but to be able to get back there and ground back as the child in our hearts. We give so much thanks again for this energy we received and how we all have connected together as a child in our hearts, which meant we connected as one heart together. One mind, one body, one soul, one energy, one spirit. Coming back into our heart space now. We can open our eyes. Now dreaming as a child, creating this new earth. Namaste.
Namaste. That was nice.
That was, all I heard was like perfect Morse code.
I know, that's what it sounded like.
And it was exactly, no, but it's exactly matching how agitated I've been. And it's like, but it was like, I don't know, it was unleashing it.
It did sound like Morse code. To be interesting to see if somebody could decipher it.
Yeah, that would be really interesting if someone knows that and could.
Like, I have a microphone, so I could set up a microphone if I do this again.
I wonder if it actually says something.
I know. That'd be cool to see.
It was just like helping it. It was like helping it. It was like singing to this agitation that I have, and it was just like and like calming me down. But that's all. I couldn't hear it. You couldn't hear that, how a ball has some tone that's oscillating, but it's a similar tone.
Cool.
So that's probably what's on the recording.
Yeah. Well, that's good though. I think it was nice. Thought it was great.
So it'll be interesting what we get out of that.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's funny how every time something's happened. Remember when we started last time, and he's on there twice, and I introduced and I said, sponsored by Universal Flow, and it goes flow, 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 flow. He like totally reverberated the flow part in the first one. I was like, how could you couldn't have tried to do that? There's no way in the world we could have planned that out and made
my crazy nervous energy. I can feel it. I'm like all over today. That's like what you're feeling.
My mom
internal.
always says Nate's gonna jump through the screen. She calls it her thing. She's like, and that Nate, he's gonna jump right through there one day. She loves it.
That's awesome.
It's fun.
Yeah, she watches every one.
Yes, she does. How are we on time?
It's 10:29.
Yeah.
Well, that's it then. Hey, thanks everybody.
Yeah, love and gratitude, everyone. Namaste.
Much love. Oh, one last point I just wanted to make is that you don't have to keep trying to find things wrong with you. I just wanted to really make sure people, remember that. Just, live, be at peace. Releasing trauma is just a way to find your peace.
Good last point. Perfect.
Yeah. Love you guys.
See you later, guys.
I don't know how to turn it off.